Oh, sorry, I'm taking some advice. I thought we put them all at the end.
Oh, okay. Was it the closure motion? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Part two. The question is now that part two will stand part. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, on the National Party side, there are those people who have campaigned over the years for a nomination as a candidate, who put up their Maori background, and one even his Cook Island background, as one of the reasons why they should be chosen to give the party, narrow as it is, a greater diverse dimension, and on the promise to those people who backed them that when they got there, they'd actually do something. They'd actually put up their hand for them on those occasions when they should show, because of their unique background, as they claimed it, their special understanding of their needs. This is such a moment. Now, as for that member from Palmerston North, if you can't win Palmerston North when you've got a swing going with you, then I think it's time not to say much when you get to Parliament. I think it's not a time to sort of get to Parliament and show off one's ignorance. I'm talking about those Maori members, and their names are Reti, Paula Bennett, Jamie Lee Ross, whose greatest contribution to this debate is to get up and seek to terminate it, Joe Hayes, Mr. Korako, Hekia Parata. This in part two, when you get to the change to that critical clause, which says it's not just for those people who live in Tokelau, Niue, or in the Cook Islands, not as to 10 years, but 20 years, which straight away is prejudicial. But if you happen to be a European critical to the infrastructure, like heading the Companies Office, or like heading the Crown Law Office there, or like working for those critical government departments and education, helping the local infrastructure, in that case, you are to be forgotten. That's where it is in part two of the bill for the MP, for the list MP from Palmerston North's sake. Read the darn thing. I know that the Minister hasn't, because the Minister got up and parroted again in her explanation how little she understood about this subject. She tried to make out if you came from the Ukraine or Poland, you were the same as a New Zealander working in Tokelau, Cook Islands, or in Niue itself. This is so base and sad that we know that one day soon it'll change, because there will be a support for the New Zealand First Amendment as to the original bill and to this matter. And on the question of affordability, don't allow 73,000 to get up to come to this country, be here for just 10 years, have no requirement to pay tax, and tell me that you can't afford it. Or is it that nowadays we favour some other country and not our own? We want the capital S put back in the special relationship between us and these three realm countries. It's that simple. Don't tell us you can't afford it, because 73,000 have done just that. But of course, they remind me sometimes of that famous line in the Mikado, the idiot who praises with enthusiastic tone all countries but his and all nations but his own, right? That's about what you hear from them, day in, day out. Can't explain themselves, can't explain why they're doing it, and following a minister who can't read the legislation herself, praising all centuries but this and every country but their own. And when it comes to their citizen, they've left them high and dry tonight. Now, I come back to Mr. Ngaro, because he's the one unique person there whose powers of, how shall I put it, evangelical persuasion should have convinced his caucus members a long time ago of the unfairness of what they were doing. I mean, it should appeal to a man of the cloth to reach down for the ordinary people, not the barons, the important people for which the National Party is so famous, like the legislation tonight where they back Todd. No, I'm not against Todd family. They back the Shell organisation, big, huge, multinational. Or, you know, the question of jump, and they say how high. But some ordinary New Zealand people who work in that part of the world just want a fair go so that they can stay there, not to come back here for 5 years, dislocate their ownership, their businesses, their assets, and what they critically do for the Cook Islands, some of which the Cook Islands can't afford to lose, nor can Niue and Tokelau, and they won't move. Now, let me say to those members, as Douglas MacArthur once said to the President of the Philippines, there'll come a time soon when your boss will want to talk to us more than you want to talk to him. I'll make no bones about that. And we're going to remember those days We'll remember them very, very clearly and with great purpose, because it comes down to this question. But can you be trusted with the needs, desires, hopes and aspirations of ordinary people? And all we're hearing tonight, Mr. Speaker,
The Right Honourable Winston
Mr. Chairman,
Peters.
all we're hearing tonight is no. We've heard every reason except in the right reason. Because if it's cost, then pray tell me how 79 or 100 people could be anything like the 73,000 thus far defended by them. 73,000 as against maybe 100. Or is it because these island nations are not unique? Is it the small s to come back into the relationship? But when it was promised by New Zealand First, taken up by this government over there, it was to the New Zealand people who have spent parts of their lives serving those nations in the critical arrangement which we have with those three realm countries. Is that too much to ask for? Reti, Bennett, Jamie Lee Ross, Joe Hayes, Korako, Parata, and Simon Bridges. Oh, there's someone to discover his iwi after he got into Parliament. What are they going to do? Are they going to say, we understand those people's needs and we've got something special to say? Or they're going to just be thumbed down by the whip and by the minister, leading the House as she has? Again, Minister, if you go to the purpose of this legislation and then on to the change we seek to make, it does not have the effect that the Ministry of Social Development has laid out. And how many times have I seen certain ministries miswrite the facts? Treasury countless times. Why, Treasury's been telling the Minister of Finance that this country is the most well-performing country in the OECD. The sad thing about that, he believes it. That reminds me of J.P. Morgan, who went, of course, to the American president right 1 week before the great collapse of Wall Street, and told him his country was performing unbelievably and that they were the greatest economy in the world. And a week later, the whole thing crashed worldwide. I want that minister to explain to us why it is that so few people, often in such critical jobs, and I've seen them over there, heading up the law departments over there, acting as the Solicitor General over there, acting as the head of the company's office, doing critical things in the health department and the education department, why would they be punished by being omitted? And we do know that when Mr. Andrew Bailey was over there, he promised to take home their message and ensure they got a fair go. That when Mr. Ngaro was over there, and it's not a matter of humour about Trader Jack's or the Swordfish Club, that's where they were holding their meetings. And that's where they got this promise. They got this promise, unconditional. When we get back, we'll do something about it. And Mr. Ngaro, you cannot get away with the excuse, well, I wasn't there that night. Because these people are intelligent and they're bright. They know that the proxy was left to vote it down. They know that. And so this time is a chance to be, in a personal sense, self-redeeming. Just get up and walk across the House at that critical time. And no matter what happens, in what looks like it might be a brief career, back home they'll always have a job for them. And more importantly, back home, because of our change, there'll be super when he gets to 65. This may not be very far away, but the fact is, even if I can appeal to his narrow, egregious instinct, he's going to be personally a beneficiary. Now they say, in politics, there's no sin like ingratitude. There is no sin like ingratitude. Mr. Ngaro has got a chance to fix up all of those promises he made and ensure tonight his party, for the first time for a long time, does the right thing.
Members, we got ahead of ourselves prior to this. The Right Honourable Winston Peters speaking. The committee moved and accepted a closure motion, and the question wasn't put. I'm now putting the question, and the question is: a part one stand part. Those in favour will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now.
Point of order.
Point of order. Sue Moroney?
Mr Chair, could you clarify then what was the vote that was taken at the time? What did we vote, did we vote on?
No, order. We had a closure motion, which the committee accepted, but the chair at the time didn't put that part 1 stand part. I've just put that now. It's been accepted, and now we're back on part 2.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, the members just had 2 consecutive
Oh,
calls
no,
on part 2.
This is part 2 now.
No, we are. That's right. And you've already had 2 calls on part 2.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, no, I'm calling Peter Williams.
Thank you.
Peter Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair.
Sorry.
No problem.
There's a point of order.
Speaker, point of order, Speaker. I don't want to be difficult here.
No, I know.
I understand the problem. But speaking logically, as a matter of logic and chronologically, this is the first speech for part 2 which I'm seeing.
No. We've already had 2 speeches on part 2. What we hadn't done is actually voted on part 1. And I'm calling Porter Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. Rise to take